So this is maximizing SiriusXM Marine weather on a Garmin display. If you came here looking for a different webinar, maybe it was fish mapping or a different electronics company, we do have a whole suite of webinars, and they can be found at SiriusXM.com/marine webinars. We will record this. I just saw that question a minute ago. We're going to go ahead and record this. We will post it on our Marine library. And that site is SiriusXM.com/marine library. Tons of videos in there, very useful how-to videos, etc. But I'll get into that later. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. In our presentation this evening, Dan Dickerson will be our primary host. Dan is with SiriusXM, been part of the SiriusXM team for well over a decade now. And Dan actually handles aviation and marine. So
I prefer marine though.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. We also have John Spittle joining us from Garmin, who is one of Garmin's trainers. Thank you for joining us, John.
Thanks, guys, for having me.
And I'm Jeff Leach, and Dan and I both are from the Maryland area, and I just handle SiriusXM Marine. So as we go through this evening, I've said this now a couple times, but if you do have any questions, you're obviously all muted. Please chat us questions as we go. What we're going to do is we're going to pause after each section and answer your questions. So they're pertinent and relevant to the section we just covered. So bring your questions, try to keep them general. If you have a specific question about your boat or your service, we can stick around after the call and we will give you phone numbers and emails, etc. So, okay. We also have Bill Platt joining us tonight. Bill is from Texas. He's a SiriusXM and Garmin pro, also an electronics dealer and an avid offshore angler. He's been using our services forever. Bill, can you hear me? If you can, take yourself off mute because we do want to encourage people to ask Bill questions too. Always great to hear it from somebody who is out on the water all the time, and Bill lives by our weather service. So if you have any questions specifically for Bill, feel free to chat him in and we'll get Bill to respond. All right. Okay, so what makes SiriusXM Marine different? For those of you who have been using the service, I'm sure you're aware of this. For you newcomers, welcome aboard. SiriusXM is up-to-date graphical weather information directly on your multifunction display. This is not seen on a cell phone, and it's satellite-based. So this is complete coverage, roughly about 150 nautical miles offshore it reaches. If you look at the blue area that Dan is tracing right now with the cursor, that's roughly our coverage area right there. So again, you know, most of you go offshore 6 to 8 miles, depending on where the closest cell tower is, and you've completely lost cell signal. And so that's a non-issue with us because this is satellite-based signal. Again, up to about 150 nautical miles offshore.
Hey, Jeff, can you hear me now?
Bill, I can hear you, and thank you for chiming in. I appreciate that.
I was having a little difficulties.
No problem. No problem. All right, so we're going to encourage people to ask you questions. Bill, as we go through these slides, if you have something to chime in on that you find incredibly useful, or a little story to tell, feel free to interject. But Dan and I and John are just going to keep talking, and as you have any anecdotal stuff or any information you want to share with the rest of the group, chime away.
Sounds good.
Great. All right. So Garmin just did a software update, which changed a little bit of their user interface. So now this is the way the menu looks. You're going to start with the home screen. And from here, you will see a whole series of icons across your chart. In this particular case, we're going to start with precipitation. So SiriusXM Weather has several of those icons dedicated for SiriusXM Weather, but for all intents and purposes, we're just going to start with precipitation. Then you go to options. And then we're going to go to your weather subscription. This is a good place to start. A relatively new feature for Garmin. This allows you to see what package you are subscribed to. So in this particular case, this person is subscribed to Marine Offshore, which is our highest tier of weather. And Bill, if you don't mind putting yourself on mute, please, that'd be great.
Yes, and that's also a good place when you do buy XM Weather and buy the module that XM54. And when you hook it up, people don't understand if they're getting the signal or not. And right there is where you're talking about is a good place to find out if you're getting signal. If it's saying zeros and stuff like that, you're not. You know, sometimes when you're dealing with the XO stuff, they may turn the radio on other than the weather. But that's a good place right there to start to know that you are getting signal.
Yep. Yeah. Good call. And so
this is a good example too. I specifically turned this unit on. Cloud top information only updates about every hour. So this unit had been on for a while, but not long enough to pick up the cloud top because each of these different things come in at different times. And Geoff, you know, here you can go back to, here's the thing about timing.
Right. So the first one was when the data was broadcast, and this is when your machine actually received it. So in these particular cases, you're looking at data updated. For instance, let's go down to marine warnings, 12:40 a.m. on the 3rd of May. And let's look at marine warnings on the next slide. So it's been around for 2 seconds.
2 minutes.
2 minutes, just barely came in to your receiver. Of course, if you see a 0 there, it means haven't received that signal yet, which means you're not going to see that feature on your screen. So just a way to prevent yourself from freaking out and wondering why your service isn't working. Always good to check the subscription page. All right, our data is brought to us by the Weather Channel. We partner with them. And they aggregate all data from NOAA and various other sources, send it to us. We obviously package it together and ship it up to our satellites, and then it's broadcast down via your weather receiver. Okay.
So jumping back to the home screen here, basically, and then going into the first screen you get when you select the options down at the bottom, it brings up this menu. And you'll notice the layer mode right here is a toggle switch. Right now it says observed, and then you've got this top key that says observed layers. And that's where we're going to go first to start talking about the weather products. Geoff, I'll flip it back over to you. You can talk about storm.
Sure. Okay. So first we're going observed. We're not going forecast. And we're going to talk about the storm layers. So on your screen right now, you are seeing weather radar and lightning strikes. Again, you can see the storm illuminated with the green button right by the side of storm layer. There is a drop down or a sub menu. So if you click on that arrow, then you have numerous options. In this case, you have 4: radar, clouds, lightning, and hurricane. In this particular screen, as you can see by those green illuminated bars, we're showing radar and clouds. Okay, now we have a way to animate weather, and it's in this particular case, it's called loop. So if you click the loop button on, then you can see the direction, the track of the storm as it is moving across your screen. So that's the loop feature. And by the way, most of our subscribers, or a lot of the subscribers that we have spoken to, tend to leave weather on. If you have 2 chart plotters, you leave weather on one, and you're always looking for those storms, especially if you're in the summertime or if you're in Florida. There's tons of pop-up storm cells. Always good to know what's out there and what's coming.
And this is another interesting thing here. You can see that there's a couple of lightning strikes right here. And then as the storm progressed, we had another strike occur. Basically, those strikes show up every 2.5 minutes. We update the lightning strike information, and then the icon stays on screen for 15 to 20 minutes and then disappears. So these are all current strikes that just happened within the last 20 minutes.
Okay, we're going to stop for questions here. And I'm just going to quickly look and see if anybody had any questions. I think I did mention previously that we are recording this. We will send that recording back out to every single one of you. In fact, anybody who signed up for the webinar will get a copy of this recording, and it will live indefinitely on our Marine video webpage. So keep the questions coming. If you have them, remember, just chat them, and we'll stop after each section to answer them. All right, let's keep moving. Oh, here's a question for you, Dan. What's the minimum distance, stand by 1 second, So what is the minimum distance out of your radar, your radar needs to be to get the clouds?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't quite, the minimum distance.
So you don't, so understanding SiriusXM, unlike your radome or your regular radar aboard your boat, you can see clouds anywhere in our entire coverage area. So if you're in Massachusetts, for instance, and you want to see cloud cover in Seattle, go for it. Just move your screen over to Seattle and you'll see clouds over there. So it is not, one particular area.
Right. The only range limitation would be the NexRad radar source from the government reaches out from the coastal installation stations about 185 miles. Now, due to the curvature of the Earth, if you're literally 185 miles away and you can still pick up the SiriusXM signal because that's right on the edge of our area of coverage, our signal reaches 150 to 200 miles out. So if you were 185 miles out, you might only see the precipitation that was very high up due to the curvature of the Earth, even though it's a tall tower that's based out of, say, Miami, for example. When you're you will see precipitation in the Bahamas that is coming from Miami's radar source. As far as cloud cover is detected from satellite. So we have a continuous mask if you want to see where the clouds are at any given time, anywhere up to, and it actually extends beyond our coverage range. So it's even more than 200 miles out is the cloud cover footprint.
So some good points being made on chat right now, obviously from people that have been using the service for a while, but if you're too zoomed in, yeah, obviously you can't see the area. If you're too closely zoomed in, always good to kind of leave it zoomed out a little further so you can see the broader area. Here's another question for you, Dan. How do you know what direction the storm, rain, et cetera, are heading? Are there arrows pointing to storm direction, or do you have it on loop to see which direction it's headed?
With Garmin right now, you have to put the loop on in order to see the direction.
We are having some discussions about putting directional arrows in the storm. We don't want to clutter the screen too much, but that could be useful.
So another little trick that you can do is actually create a combo screen with two of your navigation charts side by side and then add weather to them and then have them on different ranges. If you want to see out really far and then in really close, you can do that also.
Yep. Another question for you, Dan. If you zoom in, you lose weather. I think the question is how many miles can you zoom in before you lose the signal?
Well, it's not the signal. It's related to the Garmin software to reduce clutter. And that's only with some of the weather features. And I believe it's 0.8 of a mile. If you zoom in closer than that, then the weather layer turns itself off in some cases. So you're only looking at the navigational chart.
Right. And I guess the assumption is that you're zoomed in so far, you're really focused on navigation and probably not on weather at that point.
Right. Again, that's where a split screen might come in handy.
Right. Good point. Okay.
The other point that I wanted to make about radar, comparing our radar to onboard radar. On-board radar, you've got this big array that basically sends out a microwave and bounces and comes back and draws you a picture of what's in front of you. But what it's not showing you is how deep it is or how far it is with any relative degree of accuracy. Whereas our signal is more of a bird's eye view of the radar. So not only are you seeing what's coming at you, but you're seeing where the areas of intensity are in better detail. And you're seeing the best way to get around them. For example, in this picture right here, we're seeing the boat. And you might be trying to cut through one of these areas where there isn't as much heavy activity once you've determined the direction that the storm is moving. So that's the big advantage of SiriusXM radar over onboard radar. I like to say that onboard radar is great for showing you boats and birds. Those are other objects.
That's correct.
We're not able to show you. But as far as from a safety factor to see what a storm is doing, this is going to give you much better information.
And when you're in that position that I'm looking at right now, what you want to do right there is back out, let the storm maybe be going, see how fast it's going, maybe back off and then let the storm pass and then go through. But like you were just saying, that purple and the red is very, very intense rain. It's really, it's some bad stuff there. And you definitely don't want to go through it if you don't have to. If you can back off and let the storm pass and then go through, you can go through that. Also, you can get on your chart plotter and to the edge of the storm and hit measure, and you can measure how far that storm is and how wide it is. If you do got to go through it, you know, you're only going through a mile or half a mile or 5 miles. You know, if it's a big storm, you definitely don't want to go through it. But if it's a quarter mile or half mile and you got to go through it, you know exactly what you're up against.
Right. And these storms, a lot of times they do have very defined edges like they do right here. You know, like Bill said, in that picture right there, you might want to just stay where you're at. If that storm is moving due east, you know, you could just stay right on the edge and wait till the worst part of it is gone.
All right. Keep the questions coming, and we're going to keep moving on.
So next topic is going to be sea temperature for all you fishermen and cruisers out there looking for currents. So that when you click on the sea surface temperature, again, Garmin has for us set up default screens for precipitation, forecast, sea temperature, and sea conditions. Just want to say you can, however, if you would like to, you can see sea temperature on the precipitation page along with the precipitation. But for tonight, we're just going to go through these individually as they are. So selecting the sea temperature button takes us to this page. And again, we're going to bring up the menu, go to our observed layers. Our layer mode is still observed. And the next one below storm, now we're going to turn on the sea surface temperature. And you can see the color of the chart changed. And you can put the cursor anywhere on screen, and it's going to tell you the temperature wherever you put the cursor. So we're looking at 77 degrees right there off of Canaveral right now. And you can see the green bar is highlighted, so we know that it's on. And then over here on the left-hand side is your legend, so you can kind of see what the color scale means. So at a glance, you can kind of see, you know, what the temperatures are. And then we're going to show you a nice thing that Garmin has done. You know, you get out there, say like Florida in the summertime, the water temperature is the same almost everywhere. We've got like one monochrome color here, kind of an orangey, yellow, greenish thing going on. And what you can do is the sea temperature has a sub menu that you go to. And when you select that sub menu, you can see that you've got a lower limit and an upper limit. And right now, I've got it set for just looking at the whole United States this time of year. So it's 32 to 99. But we can change those levels. And here I've changed them. Now the lower limit's at 50 and the upper limit's at 85. And you can see how the colors changed drastically on screen. So if you're looking for a temperature break, you know, if you're trying to get on the fish where that temperature is changing, this is very helpful. And you can even take it to 1 degree further. Garmin has this auto configure button here down at the bottom. So what we're going to do is I've zoomed in here on the keys. And again, we're looking at, you know, just solid red. Almost everything looks like it's 85 degrees. Well, this is just based on the area that you're zoomed in on. So we're on a 1.2 mile scale right down here. And then we click on the auto configure button and it readjusts the color palette just for the area that you're in. So now we're looking at temperature range is set. It's only like, you know, 4 degrees spread. And you can see this rainbow of colors. And you can see your temperatures in 1/10 of a degree increments. So you can really find exactly where that break is going to be. And another interesting thing about sea surface temperature is last year, we were saying that sea surface temperature updated every 3 hours. Well, that update was a update to the average over the past 3 to 7 days. So last year, they launched a new satellite that uses new technology. In addition to infrared to pick up temperature, they now have a microwave satellite that's picking up temperature, and they're using a combination of everything. What that means is cloud cover no longer affects our sea surface temperature information. It used to be in the wintertime, for example, up here in the mid-Atlantic, if you had heavy cloud cover for several days, you get no sea surface temperature information because the infrared satellites couldn't punch through. Well, now we don't have that anymore. So the beauty of it is the temperature is now updated every 12 hours, and it's not an average. It's a complete reset of the sea temperatures every 12 hours. So we resend that information every 60 minutes, whatever the most current info we have. But the actual info from the source is updated every 12 hours. So moving on to weather station and buoy information. When we go to our options down at the bottom and select, bring up our menu again, we go to weather stations and turn them on as they are here. And then you get these symbols that appear. And you can be looking at one that's on land. That can be look like this circle, dot, and cloud. That means partly cloudy, and that's Palm Beach Airport, so we can see what's going on there. You'll also see these smaller yellow symbols, and those are buoys that have sensors on board. And we're able to give you the information coming right off the buoy. So that's very convenient to have that, to be able to click on one of those buoys out there and see what information, and the information that's coming off the buoys tends to vary. They don't all have the same sensors, but basically whatever information it's sending back to NOAA, you're going to be getting it at the same time and get a timestamp. And those typically they rebroadcast their data every 20 minutes to every hour. So it's fairly current information, giving you, at that exact spot what's going on. So going back to this weather station page, there's some other information that you get when you bring that menu up and go to weather stations, and that's their sub menu. So when you bring up the sub menu, you have a choice of different things that you can see. And what we have turned on right now is conditions, which means it gives you this symbol of what the buoy is doing. So we're seeing partly sunny or cloudy or what have you. But you can go in and select a different option. For instance, winds is probably the one that I use the most. And this is what the wind information looks like. So now we've selected winds, and it's showing us all the sensors that have wind information on board, and it's giving us the speed of the wind and the direction of the wind. So you have that option to be able to change what those symbols indicate at a glance, in addition to being able to click on any one of those and get all of the details coming off that spot. The next, we talk about marine warnings. When you turn the marine warnings button on, if any warnings are occurring in the area that you're in, you're going to get this red box that's going to show up. And that means there's something going on in that area. And if you click on that, then you can bring up detailed information. It's going to give you a tab at the top for that marine warning, and you'll be able to see exactly what that warning is referring to. And, if it's an area that you're in, you're going to have a better understanding of what's going on and if you need to get out of there or not.
All right, we're at questions again. I do recommend that people just leave their marine warnings on. You never know when there's going to be a warning in your area. So always a good thing to see it. Well, it's scary, but good to know that there's a marine warning in your area with that, reddish pink area illuminated. Okay, Dan, do we have an example of a well-defined temperature break in this presentation? I'm not sure we do. And we can certainly reach out after this presentation. If somebody wants to see a well-defined temperature break and what that looks like, we can walk you through our screen or some slides to show you that. But I don't think we have that in this presentation itself, do we?
Not beyond the ones I just had up on screen, no.
Okay, yep. All right. Let's go back to looping, Dan. And I know we're going to talk about this in a minute, but there was a question about, will looping go past current time? So quickly maybe address that. I know we're going to talk about that in a bit.
No, it won't. The way the loop works is that your chart plotter stores every image that we've sent for the last 20 minutes. So when you're playing the storm information, it's playing you a 20-minute loop of what just happened. So the freshest image, and if you turn the loop off, it immediately shows you the freshest image of where the storm is. So another way that I use it is I don't typically leave the loop turned on all the time, because when I glance at the unit when I'm running, I want to see the latest and greatest, and that's what I know. And then if I'm heading towards that, I'll turn the loop on so I can figure out what direction it's going and what's the best way to avoid the worst part of it. We've had requests for what we call future radar or forecast radar, but that's not something that we're doing yet.
All right. There was a question about wind, but we're going to talk about wind feature here in just a few minutes. So keep the questions coming. Lots of good questions. And again, we'll pause again after this next section and answer even more questions.
Okay, back to you, Geoff.
All right. So now we're going to go back to those icons and go to sea conditions. But as Dan mentioned, you can find sea conditions under any one of those icons. But it's just nice to have a designated sea conditions icon there. John, do you call these icons? What do you call these little symbols? Do you have a name for them? You may be on mute, John.
For those symbols there. Let me see here.
It's all
Let me
right.
get that for you.
If you don't have a name for it, no big deal. Just thought I'd
Yeah.
ask.
Little hot pages.
We
Yep.
do. I'll chime in because there is an official name for those.
Okay, great. So let's go to sea conditions. All right, so what we're going to show you here, and then of course you go to options. We're going to talk about wave first. So there's a drop-down menu for wave, and you've got 3 specific layers for wave. We're going to start with wave height. Now, wave height is shown in a graphical color. And if you look at the legend at the top left, you'll see that blue indicates 0 wave height, 0 feet, and 36, or red rather, represents 36-foot wave. So if you saw a heck of a lot of red on your screen, you probably don't want to go anywhere close to being out of the water. You can also on Garmin tap your screen anywhere and you see the exact wave height in that particular location. So that's wave height. On top of that, we're now going to add wave direction. Always good to know which direction the waves are coming from. And those are indicated by all these red arrows. So in this particular case, the waves are coming out of the south, southeast, pretty much south. But you know, waves can change direction. It's not uncommon to look at a screen and see waves coming from various directions. And then the third layer in wave data is wave period. So what we're looking at here, these lines, and you're looking at the period between one crest of a wave and the next crest immediately following it. So in this particular case, we're seeing an arrow at 9.8, and then the second one down below is 8.6. That's 8.6 seconds from one crest to the next. So if you saw huge waves, obviously, and you saw a close wave period that was really stacked up and potentially even saw some wave direction that were opposing each other, you could pretty much guess that the conditions are not so conducive to being out on the water. So a useful feature and always good to layer these details as well. So you really get a full picture of what's going on out there. All right, next we're going to go back to options and we're going to select wind. So there was a question already about wind barbs, and wind barbs are a little confusing. If you look at the legend, Garmin's done a really nice job with the legend up top. You can see the first tick is 5 knots. The second line or tick is 10 knots. And then the third one, which is a full-on flag, is 50 knots. So then apply that. And in this particular case, we're looking at wind coming out of the north-northeast, heading south-southwest.
Really good.
And in this
Really
particular
hot.
case,
Computer to really
give me 1 second here.
I think I saw some stellar, to the Bible speed.
All right. In this particular case, we're looking at the small tick, which it represents 5, and then the longer tick that represents 10. In the next case, we had 10 knots coming out of the east. Dan, you're getting a little ahead of me here. And with those, that barb is 10 knots. So you can see a little bit longer tick here. And then the third case, we're looking at wind, 5 knots of wind coming out of the southeast. And you can see the tiny little tick at the end of it. So again, that's wind. If you do have questions, which wind is can be very confusing, please chat those and we'll answer those here in just a minute. And here's our question time. So if anybody has any questions about wave or wind, there we go. And the question, Dan, is on the winds indicator, the tip of the arrow pointing at 3 o'clock would indicate wind coming out of the west. Think about that. Yes, that is correct.
Right. So this is, yeah, think of the dot as being a fixed point in the ground and you are facing into the wind. So in this case, the winds are coming out of the east, and that's how they're typically discussed in the forecasts. For if you listen to NOAA forecasts, it say winds out of the direction that they're coming from.
The next question is, can you change wave height? Oh, I just lost the question. Can you change wave height and range like you did for sea temperature?
No.
Yeah, not an option to do that. Can you reduce
not as critical, because there's not a, not as big a huge spread as there is with wave, I think.
Right.
We're not going to tenths of a degree.
Well, and for sea temperature too, for most species, you're really looking for those breaks and you want to see a delineation. Unlike waves, sea temperatures are critical to dial in if you're offshore fishing. Can you reduce the density of wind direction arrows, or is it fixed?
It is fixed. It does change with your zoom levels somewhat. So it kind of stays more or less what you see it here.
All right, all good questions. Keep them coming, folks. We're going to keep going.
All right, so next, going back to our home screen and options and bringing up the menu, we go to surface pressure. So again, surface pressure is one of those ones that has a drop-down menu, so you can turn off or on either of two options. The first one being barometric pressure. So here we're looking at the barometric pressure shown in millibars, and you can also switch that over to read inches of mercury if you prefer. So that's giving you your pressure information. And the next, we're giving you your weather front and your pressure area information. So here we're looking at a low pressure area. We're looking at a trough and a stationary front, warm front down here at the bottom. So we're seeing that that's the front information. So those are your surface information. Layers. All right. Next, going back to the menu and selecting zones, we talk about your marine zone information. And with the zones turned on, these blue lines show up. These blue lines show up that basically the Weather Service has sliced the coastline up into small segments, and there is a separate forecast for each one of these sections. And you can either click on the section where you are, or if you're headed somewhere else, for example, if we were in Miami and going to run to Key Largo and wanted to see what the weather was doing down there, we can click on that spot and ask for local weather. And then you'll get this pop-up screen over here with these different layers, and you can select Marine Bulletin, and that's going to bring up the weather forecast for the Keys. So it's a very easy way to see, what's going on either where you are or where you're headed. For those of you that have listened to the forecast on the VHF radio, that's what this is, except it's in text format. And I don't know about you, but I've often been listening to that forecast, and then I miss when they talk about my area because I got distracted and have to wait 20 minutes for them to come back around and mention my area again. Whereas here, you don't have to worry about that. Just click on the area where you want the forecast, and there it is for you. It pops right up on screen. So next, we're going to talk more about forecasting. So we've already seen wind and wave information. Here, I've layered everything on. So we're looking at our weather fronts and our wind information. The wind's out of the southeast, 15 knots here, 5 knots out of the southwest over here. So my wind information is on screen. And we've changed the layer mode from observed conditions to forecast conditions. So this is a toggle, basically goes back and forth between forecast and layer mode. And when it's in layer mode, then your top button says forecast layers. And you can click on that top button and bring up the information. So what we're seeing is it says now over here. And when we're in forecast layers, we have these other buttons that show up above the word now, and we can click and see what it's doing right now. Or we can click ahead and see now we clicked it and it's showing us what it's going to be doing 12 hours from now. So we can see how those conditions are changing. And depending on what level of service you're subscribed to with Sirius, if you're part of our offshore package, these forecasts go out from current conditions out to 36 and then 48 hours. So we can see over the last 48 hours how the conditions have been changing. We started out, we had 10-foot seas, and now we're down to 5, and then we're down to 3. So this whatever storm system it is moving on. And you can also see the wave height is changing between these areas. The wind is shifting around between these areas. So everything is right here for you on screen. Not only what it's doing right now, but being able to see what it's going to be doing graphically several hours into the future.
Right. Here we go again, but it doesn't look like we have any questions right now. So let's just keep rolling forward. Okay, so now we're talking about where weather layers are available. So, yep, you can overlay weather layers on your nav chart. You can overlay weather layers on your fishing chart. However, if you're a fish mapping customer, you have probably noticed already that you can't overlay weather. And that was done for a very specific reason. There's a lot going on fish mapping. There's a lot of contour lines, a lot of colors, a lot of detail. And we did not want to convolute the screen or clutter the screen even further. Garmin didn't with weather. So if you want to see weather, just your navigation charts and your fishing charts, but not fish mapping. All right, if we go to vessel. And then we go to SiriusXM radio, or media rather. This is where you access SiriusXM radio. So you may all already be subscribed to SiriusXM radio, but do know that your GXM54 weather receiver antenna from Garmin not only brings in fish mapping and weather, but if you're subscribed, will also bring in SiriusXM radio. And this is exactly how you would access that via your media bar, your media option. Also here, you'll notice that SiriusXM signal strength is included. So you see here that there's 5 bars of satellite signal coming directly from SiriusXM. There are 140 radio channels for all of you that have been far enough offshore, whether you were chartering, cruising, fishing, whatever. You realize that once you lose cell signal and once you lose terrestrial radio, that your playlist gets old real fast. So we encourage everybody to sign up for SiriusXM. If you do add SiriusXM, it comes at a reduced price. So this is the pairing. Here's an example of a fusion attached to your Garmin receiver via the GXM54 weather receiver. The GXM54 right now retails for $849. I'm sure you're already aware of that. We do have a SiriusXM rebate for $100. And that you can find that at SiriusXM.com/marine rebate that lasts through December 31st of this year. And it's fairly simple to do. You just sign up for our service, you show proof of purchase, and then we will mail you a $100 Visa gift card. Also, if you are a brand new subscriber, we do have a 2-month weather and entertainment trial. This is for our mid-tier package. It's called Coastal Weather. And again, that's a 2-month trial of that service. And you can find that at SiriusXM.com/marine offers. Or if you're a new fish mapping subscriber, you can get 1 month of fish mapping. And you just call the 1-800 number below to activate. All right, I was mentioning a minute ago about our various packages. So the first package for Garmin, kind of our middle tier, is called Coastal. Then we have the offshore package, and then fish mapping, which is our superset that includes the highest tier of weather, as well as 8 dedicated fishing specific features for offshore anglers. A minute ago, I was also mentioning SiriusXM radio or entertainment. If you do pair this under the same subscription with your SiriusXM weather or fish mapping service, it does come at a discount. It's a roughly 30% savings when you package them all together. And then last but not least, seasonal suspend. So I'm sure there's plenty of you on this call who don't use your boat all the time. Maybe your boat's up on the hard getting work done, or maybe you just pulled the boat because you're busy for a few months and you're not going to be using the boat, or it's the off season. Regardless of what your scenario is, we encourage you to seasonally suspend. There's no sense in paying for a service if you're not using it. And seasonally suspending is way better than deactivating. And I'll tell you why. All you have to do in seasonally suspending is call up that 1-800 number, say, I need my service seasonally suspended. You give them an actual date within the next 6 months, and they will automatically ping a wake-up signal to your weather receiver. You don't have to call anybody back in. You don't have to reactivate. You don't have to pay a reactivation fee. Very simple. So seasonal suspend. We encourage everybody to do it if you're not using your boat for a substantial period of time. Okay, now we're going to go into activating and software. And John, I'm going to turn the mic over to you.
Thanks, Geoff. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go into, we're going to go into options here. And then settings, system. And what we want to do here is see the system information, because we're looking for the
Sorry, John, I missed a slide there. Yeah, system,
Yep.
and then system. There's another screen that comes up here that says,
Yep. System information, then software information.
Right. So let's see here. There's the different screen layers that you go through to get to where the ID is. I apologize.
No worries. So we just want to make sure that both your chart plotter and your SiriusXM receiver, the GXM54, is up to date with the most current software. And then this is also where you can find your radio ID for getting your subscription to SiriusXM. Like we said, software updates are critical. So you want to make sure that your entire network is updated via software. So you want to make sure that your GXM54 is connected through the Ethernet connection. We do recommend that you update through Active Captain. On our website, you can actually go in and you'll see that tab up on the top right that says support. If you type in support, we can actually walk you through the software update process with videos. Active Captain's the easiest way. So if you have Active Captain on your smart device and you've gone through the setup with a formatted 32 gig card in your chart plotter, those updates can come right down through your phone. They will reach out to the devices that are on the network. So example, if we just had a GXM54 and an 8616 on the network, that's all that's going to be updated. So you do want to make sure you run the most current. I think the last software update for the GXM54 was just about a year ago. So that was the last. And then our chart plotters were just, a few weeks ago on that. So very critical. Make sure your software is up to date. Where to find your software update. This is another good thing. So with the new user interface, you want to go into options. And then you're going to go to settings on the left. And then communications, marine network. And this will show, number one, what's on your network. So this is all your Ethernet devices that are on the vessel itself. So it's showing my 8616 and the GXM54 with the latest software version of 3.10.
All right, and then activating is very simple. You just purchase or confirm that you have compatible hardware. You choose your subscription package, and then you visit SiriusXM.com/marine activate or call this 855 number to subscribe. I
did want to really quickly mention also, our GXM54 antenna does come with the under deck mount. You can only do that on fiberglass boats. You can't do it on any kind of wood or metal boat. And it's got to be something where it can actually shoot through that fiberglass. So I would go into the vessel settings and then media and look to see what your SiriusXM signal is when you're trying to place that antenna to make sure that you have good antenna coverage and good signal strength. Ideally, you just want a clear view to the sky, and then you're going to be able to pick up that SiriusXM. So just make sure you mount it in the correct spot.
Yep. Yeah. So recommended to have clear view of the sky. And I know that was a chat question earlier. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah.
We have seen some strange configurations with people mounting weather receivers in their anchor lockers and other obscure places that are, you're just compromising yourself if you do that. So the preference is to clear line of sight to the satellites.
Right. We'll work under a bimini top, something like that's okay. But it's like John said, it's solid metal or wood or even thick fiberglass on some of these boats. It really degrades the signal. So the best option is clear view of the sky.
All right. We have some great resources for you. Obviously, we have our website, SiriusXM.com/marine, and we have a general YouTube channel for all of our videos. But what I really highly recommend that everybody on this call does is go to our SiriusXM.com/marine library. This is our video library page, and it is chock full with webinars, with how-to videos, learning about individual features. So click on the Garmin tab when you get there, and then, check out all the videos that are available to you. Very educational site. We encourage all of you to follow us on social media, please. We love to hear your stories, love to get your likes, love to be connected with you. So facebook.com/SiriusXM Marine. And then for Instagram, it's @SiriusXM_Marine. Last but not least, we are connected directly in support of a company called Dolphin Fish Research Project. And this is a nonprofit organization that really is doing some critical research for mahi, for dolphin fish. And they've tagged now over 30,000 dolphin, recaptured over 800 and growing by the day. And they need active participants out there. They do have hundreds of anglers right now who are actively tagging mahi. We know there's a catch limit now on mahi. We know that, the small mahi are often getting tossed back. So why not put a tag in them? If when you get good at it, it takes under a minute to do, and it really does provide some critical data. So free tagging kits can be found at dolphintagging.com/tags. And please, if you guys would all check that out, if you want to support it, they're always taking donations and looking for other ways to be supported as well. But an organization we feel strongly about and definitely want to support in as many ways as we can. All right. If you have any technical questions, say if you have a specific question about your SiriusXM weather receiver, or you're having some pairing issues or some signal issues, whatever, marine.support@SiriusXM.com. And I say this email, way better to use this email than to call a general 1-800 number. You can get real confused in some of the call centers, as some of you may have already figured out the hard way. But if you want specific technical support from SiriusXM Marine, dedicated staff, that's marine.support@SiriusXM.com. And then, of course, if you have a Garmin hardware question or something related to Garmin, you can go email marine.training@garmin.com or call their product support line, which is listed here.